Welcome to the studio at That Nerd Show. I am Marcus Blake, joined with Jimmy Alford, and we are speaking with the filmmakers behind Confession, Will Conrad and Scott Mechlowicz and Italia Ricci. And we're very excited to be able.
Bill Cannon, not Conrad.
Oh, we're going to do that again.
You're supposed to mess up my last name, not his.
Oh my God. All right, I apologize. Thank you for pointing that out. Let me do this again. Welcome to the studio at That Nerd Show. I'm Marcus Blake, joined with Jimmy Alford, and we're speaking with the filmmakers behind Confession, Italia Ricci, Scott Mechlowicz, and Will Cannon, the writer and director. So we're going to, this movie is showing at the Dallas Film Festival in the coming week, and it is a Texas horror film. So we're going to dive into this and talk with the cast about how this film came about and everything else. Welcome, and thank you very much for interviewing with us. So we're going to start off with the big question. Will, since you are the writer and director, what is the inspiration behind this story?
Thank you for that intro. The inspiration for the story was I liked the idea of the main character who Italia plays finding out this horrible secret about her father after he had passed away. I thought there was just, in the story, she finds this tape and he confesses to this grisly murder that he claims to have committed. And I thought it was just a really compelling idea. And I liked the idea that he wasn't there to explain it and defend himself or, say, no, it's just kidding. He wasn't there to give any context to it. And I just thought it was a really cool idea for her character to have to unravel. And then it becomes even more personal for her when her son starts acting weird. And I just thought that was kind of a great jumping off point for a movie.
Okay. All right. Well, you got a lot of influences with this film. And I will say, for me personally, it made me immediately want to go watch Poltergeist again. So get back to you, and then we're going to get to everybody else. What are some of your horror influences that kind of inspired this movie?
James Wan is
Oh,
James and Scott did as well on the same movie. So James is a big influence. His whole, I just learned so much from him on Demonic when we got to work together. And then I think the big ones that everybody likes, The Exorcist is a big one. The Shining's a big one. And then I was a big fan of Sinister when that came out. I thought Sinister, there was something about, I thought it was cinematic in a way that a lot of other horror films around that time weren't. And I thought there was something just really inspiring about it. I just thought the filmmaking I just really liked. So I say those are probably the main ones.
okay. I'm going to turn it over to Jimmy. Oh, Jimmy, Paul, I guess we are having more technical difficulty. We're losing some audio.
Audio on me?
Yeah. Oh, there we go.
Okay. So hopefully you can hear me.
We can hear you now.
Yes. Okay. So one of the things that I really loved about your movie was, like you mentioned in the inspiration behind it, was the structure from the father who had passed away, not being able to explain but leaving clues behind. It kind of reminded me of another movie, Stir of Echoes. Have you ever seen that movie?
Kevin Bacon, right?
I have.
Yes.
Great movie.
Yeah.
So how difficult is it to kind of stitch a story where you have people who can't meet? I mean, how difficult is it to stitch that narrative together and still make it cohesive?
Man, that's a great question. I feel like in any story there's information that the main character has to discover, and there's information that the audience has to really understand. And I think in this story especially, because there's so much backstory and she's finding out so many things about her father and she's finding so many things out about this town. It was a little tricky. It was a little complicated to weave all that together. But I feel like every story you're kind of having to figure that out. You know, how do you make sure everybody has the information they need? Um, but yeah, with this one, it was tricky. That's a great question. It was tricky to kind of figure out like how do we give her this information that she needs from things that happened, the past that she's not privy to.
This question is for Italia. You and your husband Robbie, you are parents now. So as a mom, how much influence is a real life mom goes into your character and being protective and trying to figure everything out about what's going on?
Um, I mean, I think I felt it on a more terrifying level than had I tried a role like this prior to being a mom. And I think it made it was easier to find some of the depths of anger and frustration, and then on the flip side as well, I think it was easier for my character to flip into believing what she formerly didn't think she believed in.
Right.
Uh, and so I think that the desperation and the willingness to do or believe anything because you want to save your child, um, I understood that more clearly than I think I would have had I not had my little rugrat.
I think, yeah, I can see that. I think it makes a big difference at this point in your career being a parent.
Yeah. Also, Will had me watch the Babadook before we filmed. And
Wow.
that one was pretty tingly. So that one kind of stuck with me, and how she was losing it, but also still wanted to protect her kid. And it's just, you've only got so much brain power and spiritual energy, and to see them both wearing so thin while you're just grasping at any sort of
Right.
hope. I have goosebumps just thinking about it.
I have to go back and watch that movie. I remember when it came out, it was really good. That's a great movie for research. So
Yeah.
I'm going to ask a question for Scott here. Since we were talking about Euro Trip and we've kind of come full circle 20 years later, you play a kind of a seasoned journalist who, is more of an expert in things this time around. Um, is it refreshing to kind of get to play those characters? Because I kind of felt a X-Files Fox Mulder vibe from you.
I just like to play things that are sort of as far away from me as possible. Will always writes great characters. We sort of go way back, and that's why I love working with him. But yeah, he plays a journalist. He's an old friend of Naomi's, and things start to sort of go haywire for her. So she reaches out to me to help make sense of what's going on and maybe look into things. Yeah, he's sort of the not foundation. He's sort of the straight man in that he's making sense of all these crazy pieces that are coming together, and he's trying to also be there for Italia's character and help her with her child. So there's a lot of different facets that he gets to sort of play with, all while trying to put everything together.
Jimmy?
So I have a question for Will. When it comes to directing and having children involved on set, I've always, kind of read that it can present certain unique challenges, especially when you're making a horror film. And of course, Marcus had mentioned Poltergeist, which of course heavily involved children, and a lot of horror films do. How does that feel to you? I mean, like talking, directly, get it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. What's
Yeah.
it like, having children involved?
Well, I think it's you gotta really you have a responsibility, I think, first and foremost, to the kid. In our case, it was Zachary Gollinger. So I think first and foremost, you have a responsibility, and I'm also a parent, so I think actually all of us are, the three of us all are. So I think, and I saw this especially from Italia because she was in more scenes with Zach, but I think we wanted to be protective of him, you know. Zach was also a really seasoned actor, especially for his age. So Zach's probably spent more days on set than I have, honestly, at this point of his life, because he works so much, you know. So I think that first and foremost is a protectiveness to him to it, and then I think there's also like with kids they can't work as long, you know. I mean I think I don't remember the exact amount of time, but it's roughly half of what Italian Scott can work. Um, yeah, so the old Hollywood cliches about children and animals, we had all that going on. It was all very tricky. We had a goat,
The
we had
goat.
rats. Yeah, I mean, it was like there weren't a lot of easy days on set. And that was mostly my fault because of what I wrote and the challenges that we had to accomplish. But yeah, but I think that it was definitely tricky just because of the time you have, like I don't even it's funny because when I was watching the movie back last week and I was like looking at Italia and I was like, I wonder, like she's so good in this movie. And
Right.
I'm looking at her single, her close up, and I'm going, I wonder if Zach was there or not. And when she was doing her angle, because so often we didn't have time for so so anyway, but yeah, it's that was definitely tricky. But Zach is such a pro that it could have been a lot trickier had he not been so good.
Yeah. So, big theme with our show that we love to talk about in films is the location as a character in itself. Um, so shooting in Texas, this film being set in Texas, being set in the Bible Belt.
We shot in North Carolina.
Well, it looked like Texas, but being
Thank you.
being the story itself being set in Texas. Do you feel like that story could have been set anywhere in the South with the religious implications, or is Texas, very important to the story?
No, that's a great. Is that for me?
Yes. Sorry.
Um, I'll jump in and then I'm sure Scott and Natalia probably have their own kind of takes on it too. But um, I think it would have been different if it wasn't set in Texas. I just think like and specifically East Texas. I think
Yeah.
East Texas has been portrayed a little bit in film and TV, but I feel like West Texas has been portrayed so much more, and it's so much what people think about when
Right.
they think of Texas.
Yeah. Thank you, Taylor Sheridan.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Um, so yeah, I think it could have been, but I think it would have been different. And I know for me, like I was born in Lufkin, um, which is pretty deep East Texas, and I know I wanted there were details and specific things about that area that I really wanted to capture and that I really wanted to influence the movie. Um, and I thought it was really interesting, having lived in LA for so long, to go back home, to go back to a place like that. And just
Right.
that not only like Italia's character, not only is she dealing with this horrible thing and the supernatural thing that's going on with her son, and how horrible that is to see her child dealing with that, but then also have these sort of cultural people on the outside looking at her and sort of judging her because her son is acting out, because her son is acting a certain way. And those things I thought would be more kind of interesting in a small town and in specifically in a place like East Texas.
I also think it was a little. I also grew up in Texas. I also think it was pretty grounding for the film. It helped isolate the scene because if it was to be shot like in a big city, it just has a completely different feel. And when you're in a very isolated, small town, empty sort of setting, it helps
Yeah.
focus on the story and it sort of quiets all the noise around it. And I really like that element about it.
Well, Texas is filled with so many weird urban legends, especially when you get to East Texas and my alma mater is Stephen F. Austin. And while I was born in Chicago, I graduated from a high school in East Texas. And you still get all this lore of Satanism from the 80s and all this other crap and stuff like that. So I think that kind of plays into how you tell a story like that. I mean, wouldn't you agree, Will?
Sure. Yeah, I do. Where and Stephen F. Austin, I mean, you know this area really well then that we're talking about. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm been there in 20 years, but yeah,
Sure.
I mean, heavily wooded and great place to shoot if you can.
Yeah.
But so this question is for Italia. I mean, you're from Canada, right? Yeah. So are you familiar with like the Deep South, the Texas at all, or was it kind of, eye-opening through this story?
I mean, I was as familiar as one can be, having seen it portrayed in films. I've never been to Texas. Dallas Film Festival will be my first time.
Really?
Uh,
Funny.
and so, I mean, I it was fascinated with all the different, especially growing up and being a theater kid and wanting to know all the different accents, even though I didn't get to use one. Um, so I knew, like, I just kind of knew, and I grew up Roman Catholic, so I knew the people who like
Yeah.
really leaned heavily into it, and I grew up on a farm, so there were lots of little things I could pick from, but I also really liked the idea that my character didn't didn't subscribe to any of those things, and
Right.
pushed back even from a young age. So it was nice for me because personally, I also was kind of like icked out by the super extreme
Yeah.
of it when I was growing up. And so it was really it was easier for me to sort of use my ignorance or lack of knowledge in her favor as just sort of disdain and unwillingness to accept,
Yeah.
on top of everything that Will wrote that gave her enough reason to
Yeah.
believe it.
Yeah. Being Catholic, talked about the movie from last year, Conclave, being more important this week.
I know. I know.
Um, so, Jimmy, I'm going to turn it over to you, and then we're going to get into a couple of fun questions for the cast or the filmmaker.
Well, I do have a question that would be both for Scott and Natalia. And it kind of goes back into like, playing like the region and things like that. And since you were kind of surrounded by people from the area, Natalia, I mean, I would especially like to hear from you, like, what influences did you bring personally from your own background to influence your character? I know that you are trying to like envelop yourself into this world and you are portraying a certain character, but what did you add personally? Like what can you point to and say that's me?
I mean, it basically is, I met with Will about the script, just to see if we kind of vibed, and because I really liked the way she pushed back in the film. Like, I find in a lot of films people are too quick to flip their beliefs just for the
Right.
sake of storytelling, and I liked that she had pushed back, and we had some conversations about it, and it just, it felt like an alternate universe me. Like, I didn't feel like I was in that much of a character. It didn't feel like I had to bring things. It was more like I was reacting to a situation the way I would react to that situation. So the hardest part of my job was just to, believe it was happening. It wasn't like I had to, put on a character every morning and take one off. It was a couple of temporary tattoos and a great script.
That's got to make the performance a lot easier. Yep, this is just me.
And
Can I
Scott,
can I
how
add
about
to
you?
that?
Yeah,
Can
go
I
ahead.
add to that?
Oh yeah.
I was just gonna say, Italia, the first time we met, there was just something about her that just clicked. Like, we had this great meeting, at least I thought it was great. Hopefully she does as well. But we had this great meeting and there was just something, it was just like the book Blink. There was just something that was just so intuitive. The things that the way she talked about the script, the way she talked about the character, and I think in the film she seems very effortless, and I think that is all her because there was just something I think that she just got it. And when she talks about it being her, like that was really fun for me to watch because it was so kind of effortless for her, and she was just kind of naturally great at it.
Nice.
Something I'm going to give props to Will about is even if it's a sort of a fantastical situation, like the script has elements of, he still grounds it in reality. And not all films, have the privilege of having that grounding in reality. I would say for me, just yeah, like Italia was saying before, when you have a kid, you've lived it. So the stakes are inherently higher. If I were to shoot this before I had children, you can't relate to that
Yeah.
loss intensely. So that's something that I sort of natively found being brought into it.
All right.
Yeah. It's just easier. Like I feel like before kid, I could have probably faked it, but it's like your blood pressure spikes faster thinking of a situation where your
Yeah.
child is when you actually have a child. Like biologically, your body responds differently to being put in these situations in my experience.
It's amazing. Okay. So I'm going to ask one last question before we get to our famous nerdy question. And I don't want to spoil the ending. So I'm going to ask it this way without trying to spoil it. Will you kind of turn the ending on its head a little bit? Because it's very easy to assume that everything works out and blah, blah, blah. But then it kind of doesn't. And you've left it open for a potential sequel. Talk about kind of that process. Is that the point of this story, to kind of make the audience realize that it's not going to necessarily be a happy ending, and as I said, turn it on its head?
Well, I love an ending that goes on its head for sure. I think that's always fun. I think for me, it's like what would be the most satisfying thing to do here? What would be the most satisfying way to end this? How can we like I think kind of what you're saying that I really like is like how can we subvert the audience's expectations in a way that's like fun and satisfying? So that's my goal, without giving too much away, is to do that in a way that sort of it gives you something that you didn't see coming that's simultaneously satisfying and exciting, and this is a genre I think where you can do that and have fun with
Right.
it, which is what we try to do.
For Scott and Natalia, when you guys read the script and you kind of get to the end, you're like, oh, okay, great. But then there's that ending, the way that it is. Were you guys shocked when you first read the script?
Ty?
I don't know if I was shocked more than I was heartbroken
Okay.
being a mom, thinking about that like the next day.
Okay. How about
Yeah, it's so hard to answer this without like
No.
giving it away.
best not to spoil the ending. Yeah.
Ali sort of nailed it. That's God. I don't know how to answer it without. Yes, you have very strong feelings of sympathy and empathy towards certain characters at the end, that I wasn't expecting, and it was a very nice curveball, and it was satisfying to get it because it just would have been less interesting to end it sort of banally and like
Well, I don't.
seen a million times,
Yeah, you can't give the Hallmark version of a horror film where, the perfect ending or whatever. It kind of reminds me of one of my favorite horror movies, The Omen, where it's just that camera stops right at the very end. You don't know what's really what's gonna happen and stuff. So
Totally.
yeah. But if nothing else, again, you've left it open for a potential sequel, and I hope we get to see that. So
Thank you.
all right, so we come to our famous nerdy question that we ask all of our filmmakers, the one that you're not prepared for and you haven't thought about because you haven't interviewed with us. So here we go. If you could have a superpower or a weapon of choice from within the nerd universe to fight the forces of evil, what would you choose? And you can have both. There's no wrong answer or specific answer. And I'm going to.
You're saying you could have two?
You can have two. You could have a superpower and a weapon. You can mix it up. Yeah, really getting you thinking. And Scott spoke first, so I'm going to start with you.
Flight has to be one instantly. And I guess I would say like invincibility.
Okay. All
Not
right.
invincibility.
That's a superpower. You need a weapon, like a physical weapon, not just
You can have either a superpower or a physical weapon. That's the greatness of the question.
I'll I'll pass on the weapon and stick to those two. That would be much more.
Somebody's getting ready for the Superman movie this summer.
Okay, I'll make it fun and nerdy, I guess. See, I would want Sonya Blade's Kiss of Death.
Nice. All right.
Of course you would.
I've never had that answer before.
And then I don't know if somebody has the superpower, but I'm sure they do. Maybe doesn't the Flash have like a dome he can put over things to like protect my husband and my son and my dog? And then I'll battle the world by kissing everyone. What COVID?
I think that's the daughter from
The Incredibles.
The Incredibles. Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
I'll take that then.
We know what movie that you've had to watch with your son.
That and Detective Pikachu nonstop.
One of my daughter's favorites. She is a Pokemon fanatic.
Oh my gosh, you have no idea. I have to pry the damn thing out of both my husband because he plays the phone one.
Yeah.
And the first thing my son, anybody walks through the door, you got a Wonder Pick? You got a Wonder Pick? And I'm like, I'm gonna kill you. But I'd want to protect him, not kill him.
And Will, how about you?
I feel like having a 7-year-old, there's a lot of pressure to get this right because he, like it's like, Dad, are you serious? So I want to be able to walk through walls. And then I want to be able to go through walls, and then I'm gonna go with Thor's hammer. That's mine.
Nice.
Oh.
So basically you want to be the guy at the end of Endgame that can hold the hammer, just like Captain America. I got
Right.
it.
That's
Nice.
right.
All right.
He can already. Will has guns.
All right. Well, thank you very much for interviewing with us. It was, again, a great film. Did not see the ending coming, and I hope there's a sequel till we get some resolve on that. But before we go, what's next besides showing at the Dallas Film Festival? Is that the official premiere of the film, or is it shown at other festivals?
No, this is our official premiere.
Okay.
We wanted to shoot in Texas, although we didn't end up shooting there. But being from Texas, this is a homecoming, and this
Okay.
is so this is our premiere. We wanted to be here. We're excited to premiere it in Dallas.
Okay. So you're starting the festival run.
We are.
Okay. So there's no official release date, but beyond doing it premiere at the festival yet?
We should have some news coming soon, but we don't have we haven't announced our official release yet.
All right. Well, for everybody from our audience, if you're in the Dallas area, yes, go to the Dallas Film Festival and check this movie out. It is worth the price of the ticket and everything else. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you guys. You're awesome. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having us, you guys. This is fun.